Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us today for the Journal's Citation Reports 2024 APAC webinar. My name is Amy and I'll be your host for today. It's actually been 1 year since our 2023 session because we happened to have the same session last year on July 12th. So just a fun fact to start and a few housekeeping notes before we start. So if you're having any trouble with your audio or video visual, please just open the chat box on the from the bottom right hand corner of your window. You can click on the chat bubble to open the chat box. This chat box is also going to be what we're using for Q&A. So if you have any questions throughout the session, please send them in through the chat. I will monitor this for Julin. So we will be taking up questions throughout the session. And if there's still time at the end, we will be taking up some questions at the end. The session is recorded, so a link to the recording and a copy of today's presentation will be shared with you today. Within next week. And for those of you who need an attendance certificate, it will also be shared with the follow-up email after the webinar. And for today, we have with us Julin Chung, our Senior Customer Success Manager, specializing in Clarivate's research and analytics solutions. Julin engages with researchers and university leaders around Southeast Asia in discussions around optimizing researcher workflows, bibliometrics, and strategic decision-making. And now over to you, Julin.
All right, thank you, Amy. A very good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone who's joining from various parts of the globe today. I think we do have a huge number of participants, and first and foremost, I will want to apologize in advance in case we can't get to all the questions for today's webinar. I know today's topic is one that is very hot right now, and I think many participants who are joining us today has good reasons for joining us, because this year's Journal Citation Reports brings the final iteration of change that we are introducing to some of the journal metrics within the platform. So without further ado, I'll just proceed with today's main agenda. Now, the recent estimates of scholarly journals being published globally is estimated to be about over 48,000 journals across all disciplines. And this is what this is actually a large number, a lot of content, and it's getting really difficult for various stakeholders within an institution to make decisions around journals. So for example, like researchers would find it even more difficult to be able to pinpoint suitable journals to publish in, or even just to filter out which journals are trustworthy and which are not. For the library, it's also even more challenging now to ensure that your library's collections are maintained with rigorous research, and you are also exposed to more and more new journals, and you need to consider whether these new journals are important to be included into your library collections. And of course, finally, with open research being more and more prevalent now in today's research ecosystem, as institution administrators, you will also want more comprehensive data to make decisions on your open access publishing strategies. So how can you decide what is important? Now, we just discussed about the rapid growth of publishing outputs. I think last year when I was sharing those slides, it was at about 30,000 in terms of numbers. But now we have kind of increased exponentially to over 48,000. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. Alongside this trend of increased publishing outputs or publishing outlets, we are also seeing a rise in the questionable publishing practices of journals. Based on The Economist, they have actually published a report out in 2020 in May, And they reported that at least 13,000 predatory journals are inexistent worldwide. And this is across all the different subject areas that you see on the screen now, across things like health sciences, maths, physical and chemical sciences, economics, and biology. Now, tied in with this trend are open access mandates from funders that increase the demand for open access publishing outlets. And those mandates actually paired with the overall rising cost of article processing charges can lead to a rise of dubious publishing outlets, which may offer affordable open access publishing and shorter publication time. So researchers would need tools that allow you to be guided on what is trustworthy publishing avenues. Now, predatory publishing is just one of the many fraudulent behaviors that we are seeing. In recent years, we are witnessing actually an increasing rise of the different types of fraud that lead to article retractions. So what you see on the screen here is just some examples like salami slicing, inappropriate self-citations, paper mills, hijacked journals. So hijacked journals are quite common. Coercive citations, author marketplaces, citation marketplaces, and the works. And now we are also seeing Gen AI content. So we at Clarivate recognize that we have to have a role to play in making sure that we monitor the research ecosystem that we have in, for example, the Web of Science. And we take that role very seriously through our curation process. So with public mistrust in science on the rise around the world, it's more important than ever to ensure that your university or your institution actually makes sound and ethical decisions on publishing outputs. And as publisher-neutral curators of the scholarly record, we actually partner with stakeholders across the research community to support research integrity. Now, we focused on providing content, data, and metrics you trust in the face of negative trends. And we curate Web of Science core collection and journal citation reports so you can be confident that you are consulting trustworthy quality sources. Now, we do this in 3 ways. Number 1, we curate our collection. So only journals that pass our rigorous selection criteria or process will be included into the Web of Science core collection and journal citation reports. Secondly, we curate our data. So we curate our data to provide a reliable foundation for analytics. So we standardize authors' names, affiliations, we include addresses as well and unify them to provide improved unification and accuracy of data. Standardization and consistency of document types are also there across the 21,000 plus journals that we have indexed in Web of Science. And our high quality journal title curation actually underpins the accuracy of the journal citation reports attributions. And lastly, we curate our metrics. So to make sure that we are only presenting indicators that accurately reflect the scholarly network. For example, we actually suppress journals from journal citation reports if we detect citation anomalies that result in a journal impact factor that does not accurately reflect that journal's contribution to the scholarly network. So say, for example, if we detect there is a high level of journal self-citations or citation stacking behavior, then those journals will be suppressed from receiving their journal impact factor. So what is the journal citation report? Some of you might be joining us for the first time. The journal citation reports is an annual report that distills citation data from the Web of Science core collection to help you understand journal performance. So I reiterate, it's to help you determine and understand a journal's performance. It provides you with the transparent publisher neutral data and statistics that you will need to make confident decisions about journals across your institution. And from the perspective of researchers, you will use journal citation reports to find journals consistent with your research values to showcase your research. And for libraries, you would use journal citation reports to ensure that your library collections support rigorous research and teaching, and therefore make data-driven decisions about open access strategies as well. Now, for nearly 50 years, the scholarly community has actually relied on journal citation reports as an authoritative source for journal metrics. And we take that role very seriously. And each year, we do extensive analysis to ensure that the data is accurate, objective, and complete, including, like I mentioned earlier on, screening for anomalous citation activity like citation stacking or journal self-citations. Then so journal suppressions are actually one example of how we support research integrity. And you can also view citation metrics alongside descriptive open access statistics and contributor information. And that would provide you with multiple ways to think and consider about the journal's ultimate impact and influence, and drill down into the article data that underlies the impact factor calculations to better understand the relationship between article and the journal citations. Now, misuse of the journal impact factor in research assessment can drive citation distortion. So many times I'm always hearing from researchers or institutions that they recognize the researchers based on where they're publishing, but that's only the potential of that researcher. So if that researcher is able to publish in a journal that has a high journal impact factor or high quartile, that is the potential of that researcher. But ultimately, the performance or the impact is actually derived from, for example, the citations or even the category normalized citation impact. So being able to put citation performance in context of that field. So recognizing a researcher actually based on that citation performance in his papers would help to create that balance. So journal impact factor, where he's publishing is the potential, and then where how much he actually performs, how well he actually performs would be the ultimate recognition that he should receive. So we are invested in providing guidance on responsible research assessment. So for example, when data about researchers and their institutions are squeezed into one simplified metric like what I just mentioned, or even just on H-index, okay, a lot of information is actually lost. So in 2019, Institute of Scientific Information, ISI, dove into this topic and presented visualizations that help to unpack the richer information beneath each of these indicators. And our products, which include the journal citation reports, will support all of these best practices outlined in this report. So if you're interested to download these two reports that I have on the screen, feel free to look in our global website under clarivate.com. So I mentioned about the various types of metrics in addition to one single metric. So this on the screen here is an example of a visualization that is on the journal citation reports. This actually shows the citation distribution for articles in one journal profiled in the JCR. Here, you will be able to view which content type. Is it the articles or the reviews that receive more citations? So this allows you to understand, number one, the source data. So what type of items are mostly published within this journal, and also to help you to make better decisions on whether potentially your manuscript could have more citations in that particular journal. So I mentioned potential, right? Then we also provide additional indicators that can be used in complementary with what you always are familiar with, which is the journal impact factor. So back in 2021, we introduced a new indicator called the Journal Citation Indicator, or JCI. The journal impact factor. So what's the difference between the two? Most of the time, researchers are always asking about the difference and when to use which indicator. So first, let me explain what the journal impact factor is. So the journal impact factor is just a raw number. Okay, we take into consideration citations from only 1 year, which is the 2023 for this current year's data, 2023 citations to documents from 2021 and 2022. So this one, which is the journal citation indicator, on the other hand, takes 4 years citations, right? From 2020 to 2023 and dividing them by the citable items in 3 years, which is 2020, 2021, and 2022. So in other words, the JCI actually counts citations in 4 years to citable items published over a period of 3 years versus citations in 1 year to items published in the previous 2 years. So the scope is wider. This is particularly meaningful for disciplines that gain the bulk of their citations over a longer period of time. Okay, and what's the main difference? Okay, the journal impact factor is a journal level metric. The journal citation indicator, on the other hand, is an article level metric, and it's normalized. So the citation JCI value of 1.0 is the global average. If a journal has a JCI of 2.0, then the journal is performing 2 times better than the other journals. If the journal has a JCI of 0.5, then the journal is performing below the global average in comparison to the other journals. So with JCI, you can now compare across the different disciplines for the journal's performance. The journal impact factor, on the other hand, is not normalized. So you would only be able to compare the journals within the same subject category using the journal impact factor. Okay, later on when I go into the demonstration, I'll be able to highlight to you how you can use these two in complementary of each other. All right. Now, over the last decade, the journal citation reports has actually evolved to provide researchers, librarians, and assessors with truly multidimensional journal profiles for a well-rounded journal evaluation. So the changes that we have are shown here on the screen. Okay. So in 2015, we introduced more indicators like the percentage in articles in citable items, journal impact factor percentile, and the normalized eigenfactor, and so on. In 2018, we introduced more data transparency by showing you the formulas that are behind the calculation of some of the metrics that we have on journal citation reports. And in 2020, we introduced open access. So open access data is introduced to JCR, and you're able to see the Go Open Access contributions for all journals in the JCR. Then 2021 came the first wave of our expansion, and we've introduced our normalized indicators like the journal citation indicator, and we've also included AHCI and ESCI titles into the JCR, whereas for previous years prior to 2021, it was only SCIE and SSCI. Then in 2023, last year, we expanded the journal impact factor to ESCI and AHCI journals. So last year, from last year onwards, all journals in the Web of Science received a journal impact factor. So with that introduction in 2023, it means that now the journal impact factor is a reliable indicator of trustworthiness, as all journals, be it ESCI journals, AHCI journals, SCIE, SSCI journals, they all met our 24 quality criteria. Now this year in 2024, we introduced the unified rankings. And this is the completion of our phased approach to provide transparency on impact to journal impact factor rankings and quartiles.
Hey, Jillian, do you want to do
Yes.
some two questions?
Let me have a quick look. So I think there was a question about researching in a field that is not popular. So I think if your topic areas are very specific, okay, very niche, then you might want to have a quick look and do a search in the Web of Science on your specific niche topic area before looking at the journals that are suitable. Because on the Web of Science, you will be able to use the Analyze Results feature to filter, to look at the journals, index in Web of Science, that publish that specific niche topic that you have. So that makes it easier to pinpoint the journal. All right, let me see if there were any other questions along the way. Okay. Another question is JCI discipline specific? Now, journal citation indicator has already been normalized to the discipline. So what we do is we would take like the expected citation counts for a particular category and look at the actual citation counts of the article. So if the article says receives maybe 50 citation counts, the expected citation for that category is 10, then 50 divided by 10 is 5. So we would say that that article is performing 5 times better than the others in that same category. And we use this indicator, which we call CNCI, Category Normalized Citation Impact, to calculate our JCI. So it is already normalized based on the discipline. Okay, so I hope that answers those two questions for now. All right.
Thanks, Jillian. That's all for now.
Yeah. So moving on, I thought I would explain some of the policy changes that we have on JCR currently. So when the JCR was first launched in 1975, all right, even back when I wasn't even born yet, all right, issues of research integrity and questionable publishing practices were not actually so widespread. So the terms like high quality and high impact were often used interchangeably because most highly cited journals were already considered best journals in terms of quality. But now, in today's state, we are seeing industrial levels of fraudulent behavior and increased pollution of scholarly record. So there's a lot more manipulation, unethical publishing behaviors around these journals. So chasing publications and citations have now become goals in themselves, and we can no longer assume that the best journals are actually the most cited journals. And high quality can no longer be equated to high impact. So the JCR policy change that we have started to introduce, like the introduction of the journal impact factor to all journals in Web of Science, reflects our position that the most important differentiator between journals is whether the content they publish can be trusted rather than whether they are highly cited. So what this means is that now, if you realize that if you're familiar with our core collection indices, we have 4 indices in the Web of Science core collection, which is the Science Citation Index Expanded, Social Science, Arts and Humanities Citation Index, and Emerging Sources Citation Index, so ESCI. Now, all 4 indexes now are in journal citation reports. They are considered indexed in Web of Science core collection. They are indexed in the Web of Science platform. The differentiator is that Emerging Sources Citation Index journals, ESCI journals, meet our 24 quality criteria. These specialized indices, like the Science, Social Science, and Arts and Humanities journals, meet our additional 4 more impact criteria. So that's the difference between these two. But now we already have ESCI journals and AHCI journals with journal impact factor. So what this means is that now journal impact factor, as long as you see that the journal has a journal impact factor from the journal citation reports, you go into the system, verify that the journal has a journal impact factor, that journal is trusted. Okay, so it is an indicator of trustworthiness now. Next, this year, so for this year's JCR release, we unified the category rankings. So last year when we introduced journal impact factor, a lot of researchers say, oh, why didn't we see the quartiles and rankings for ESCI journals yet? Why didn't we see the quartiles and rankings for some of these journals that are in AHCI? So this year we have introduced those rankings accordingly. So we also unified rankings. So typically from previous years, SCIE, SSCI, and AHCI journals have higher journal impact factors compared to ESCI journals. However, we know that ESCI journals with higher journal impact factors than SCIE, SSCI, or AHCI journals are present potentially in the same category. So there's actually two reasons for that. The differentiator of passing the 4 impact criteria is not just about the journal impact factor alone. So I mentioned the 4 impact criteria. Estimated journal impact factor is potentially one of them, but there are other 3 factors involved. Then another one would be impact evaluations were paused since 2022 to focus on quality re-evaluations. So if you remember, early last year, we delisted quite a number of journals, and that was part of our initiative to use a fine-tooth comb to run through what we currently have on the Web of Science, and that is still our focus. So because of that pause in re-evaluations, journals are still in ESCI, and some of these journals are performing very much on par, like in quartile 1, quartile 2 of SCIE or SSCI journals. Then we are also not introducing the journal impact factors rankings to 25 pure arts and humanities categories. And the reason is because of the difference in the citation behavior of these pure arts and humanities journals. So if you'd like to learn more, in the slides that we are providing to you, you will be able to have a quick look at all our different blog posts that would cover some of these policy changes. So what's new in this year's report in terms of numbers and features, or even the quartiles and the unification of the subject categories? This year, the journal citation reports actually contains 21,848 journals from 133 countries, classified into our 254 subject areas. 544 of these journals are newly added titles that receive their impact factors for the first time. And one thing that has always set the JCR apart is the fact that we actively curate journals, and as I mentioned, we suppress those of anomalous behavior. So 17 journals have been suppressed in this year's journal citation reports, and the titles can be found in our help guide on the platform. We are also taking a big change in the way that we categorize the journals. So we are taking a category first approach to the data, as opposed to all prior years where the organizing principle of journal citation reports was determined by where a journal is indexed in the journal core collection. So say, for example, here on the left-hand side of the screen, this was what was done prior to this year's release. So prior to this year, we had one category in education and educational research in ESCI edition. And then we also had another one, which is of the same category, but in this index of SSCI. This year, moving forward, we have now consolidated both lists together. So all journals in ESCI and SSCI that belong to the subject category of education and educational research will be put into that same list. So it makes it more straightforward and clear for users or researchers to understand that these 756 journals are already the quality trusted journals in educational research. Now, previously, all journals indexed in Science Citation Index Expanded, SSCI, SCIE, were ranked in their category or categories by journal impact factor. This meant that a journal might have two ranks, like the example here on the screen. Okay, I've grayed out the details for privacy purposes. All right, but you can see here in the 2022 data, which is the bottom one right here. So let me guide you. So like this one, this is what was happening prior to this year's release of JCR. Okay, it was ranked in a group of 180. So this was 180 public health journals in the social sciences. And it was also ranked in a group of 207 public health journals in the sciences, SCIE. But this year, because we consolidated the subject categories, this journal is ranked in one single list of 403 journals across both the SCIE and SSCI. Okay, so this change applies to all science and social science journals in 229 categories. So if you remember in my previous slide, I mentioned 254 subject categories. So what happened to that 25? So the 25 categories are the pure arts and humanities categories that do not overlap with any SCIE or SSCI categories. And because of this, we did not introduce the quartiles and the rankings for these pure 25 arts and humanities categories. Okay, and the reason for that is because of the citation behaviors of the that particular category.
Hello, Jillian. Would you like
Yes,
to
let
do
me
two
see.
questions before you
Yep.
jump into the demo?
Let me have a quick look.
You want me to read it to you, or you want to?
Yeah, I'm taking a look on the Teams. So okay, a question about journals that publish more review papers, which tend to get higher citations. Is this not just biased citations for journal impact and quality? That's actually a very good question. So journals, there are journals that publish lots of reviews. There are journals that publish both articles and reviews. And yes, citation behavior for review articles can differ from original research papers. But that's not the bias that we are looking at. The bias that we are looking at is for journal self-citation. So let's say, for example, two articles from that same journal cited each other. So that's the citation behavior that we are monitoring. Most of the time, the benchmark or criteria that we kind of frame around is 20 to 25% in terms of journal self-citations. So if you go to the help guide to see the list of suppressed titles that we have in JCR, you would be able to see the percentage of their self-citations that we actually found that triggered this suppression. Okay. But to answer your question, we monitor the quality of the journals based on its content in its own rights. But in terms of the citation performance, on average, most of the time, review articles do get citations, do get more citations. And the normalization that we have for JCI, for example, takes into consideration the document type already. So we benchmark them according to the same document type as well. Okay. Let me see what other questions are there. Okay, journal impact factor subject ranking is not available for arts and humanities categories. So back to this one. All right. is this a long-term approach, or will the journal impact factor subject ranking for arts or humanities titles be available in future years? This is a long-term approach. So because of the citation behaviors of these pure arts and humanities journals, one reason is that, for example, the citation performance are fairly close to each other for these journals. So the calculation of things like the journal impact factor has very little differentiators. So if you were to quartile out these journals, then it doesn't really make sense. All right. So it's not, we actually took this approach after getting information from our stakeholders as well as the research community. Okay. All right, so let me just go into the demo first, and then we can see if we have more time later on to address some of these questions. If we can't get to all questions, rest assured that we will try and reach out to you to get them answered. Okay. So this is the Journal Citation Reports website. What you could be able to do is to browse by subject categories, or simply just type in the journal's name to verify whether the journal is indexed in the Web of Science or Journal Citation Reports. The other thing that I wanted to clarify, since we are also on this call, is that I've received quite a number of questions about why is there potentially a article that a journal that I see in Web of Science now, but it's not in JCR. Okay, two potential reasons. Number one, have a look at when was the last published content that is on Web of Science. If it's a current day publication, that means a 2024 document that was indexed in the Web of Science for that journal, then potentially that journal is fairly newly indexed. And you can verify that on our master journal list. So master journal list can be accessed through here on the products page. Go to master journal list and you can see a list of currently indexed journals. The journals in Journal Citation Reports is a snapshot of journals indexed by a certain point in time where we had to cut off the data so that we can do our calculations for the journal metrics. So it might not have the journals that were newly indexed, maybe in January this year through to now. Okay, so for those journals that are newly indexed potentially this year, they will maybe come into the Journal Citation Reports next year in June. Okay, so I hope that helps to clarify some potential questions out there about this discrepancy in titles. Now back to the journal's JCR homepage, you will be able to type in the journal's name. So let's say I put in International Journal of Hydrogen Energy. If the journal is there in Journal Citation Reports, you can link through into the details. So there's a journal profile page for each journal in JCR. Click through and it opens up this journal profile page. Within this journal profile page, you'll be able to see details about this journal from its ISSN, EISSN, publishers details, publication frequency, and its performance. Earlier on during my slides, I mentioned about transparency in our data. So the journal impact factor calculations can be viewed here just by clicking, and you can see the contributing numbers to that ultimate journal impact factor of 8.1. On the right-hand side, you will also be able to see the citable items that contributed to this journal impact factor. So these are content that were published this year and used for the calculation of the journal impact factor. You can preview the abstract directly on Web of Science by clicking on this link as well. Okay. Then you would be able to see the journal citation indicator. So this journal has a JCI of 1.16. There's a short explanation. So average JCI is 1. So this journal is 1.16. So slightly above the global average. The citation distribution chart that I showed on my slides earlier on is here. So this, you can find that this journal publishes more articles compared to reviews. So most of the time, the citation counts goes to the articles. Then we have the open access contribution ring. So this gives libraries an opportunity to make better decisions on collections. Okay. And we have the rankings for the journal impact factor. Okay. So for this journal, because now we are taking a category first approach. So this journal was in two subject categories, chemistry and electrochemistry, and it is a quartile 1 journal in either category. Okay. Do not be confused because we also have another quartile for JCI. So always refer to your institutional guidelines or your national guidelines on which quartile they are referring to. Most of the time, they are still referring to the journal impact factor quartile, GIF quartile. Okay. There are other metrics that I always encourage you to consider when looking at the journals as well, especially when you want to look for additional options to publish in. So sometimes you might be rejected by a journal in Web of Science. So let's say you sent your manuscript to International Journal of Hydrogen Energy and you got rejected. You might want to know where else you could potentially send your manuscript to. These journal citation relationships will give you an idea of which journals have higher relationships with the original one that you were looking at. And the higher the proportion, the higher the relationship, and therefore potentially could be good alternatives to send your manuscript. But one thing to mention is that although these can be shortlisted, so you still have to go into the journal themselves, look at their aims and scopes before determining whether those journals are indeed suitable for your manuscript. So always take the time to understand the content in the journals that you want to publish in. Right. Then we have source data, which I find that is a very important one, especially for early career researchers to save time. Okay. Now on journal citation reports, we use the term citable items. And citable items is articles plus reviews only. So your manuscript type could be an original research article, it could be a review article. Looking at this, out of 4,832 citable items, this journal publishes 4,585 original research articles and only 247 reviews. So because of this small percentage of review articles in this journal, if your manuscript type is a review, then this might influence your decision on whether this journal is a suitable home for your manuscript. So I hope that you can have a closer look at this particular source data information of the journal before your submission. Then contributions by country or region is also very important. Sometimes most of the journals will mention this in their aims and scopes, but you can also see this in the journal citation reports journal profile page to see the regionality of the content. Is it more US centric, UK centric, Asia centric, Southeast Asia centric, APAC centric? That could influence your decision on whether your research would be a suitable one for that journal. Okay. So I hope you would take into consideration looking at this journal profile page to make better decisions on journals. Now, the next question that are on many people's mind is, can I get a list of journals in my subject category? So you can do that by looking at this second tab here. So you can browse by categories, and we have grouped them into some broad areas. And you can dive into, say, economics and business, environmental studies, and you would see a consolidated list of journals here, 184. Click on that, and this is the list of journals. you could look at. By default, this is how the indicators that you would see, the journal impact factor, quartile, and the JCI. But if you want the other metrics that I have shown you on the journal profile page, there is a customize option here, which allows you to put the other indicators also onto this table for viewing. I promised that I was going to share with you how you can use the journal impact factor and the JCI together. So say, for example, you sort this list by the journal impact factor, you would notice that immediately there is an ESCI journal here that is a quartile 1. Okay, so it means that this ESCI journal, number 1, is a trusted journal. Number 2, it is a high performing journal. Okay, so from this list, I will be able to see which are the journals that have a higher quartile, but the differentiator lies with the JCI. So say, for example, this journal, Business Strategy and the Environment. This journal has a lower journal impact factor compared to, let's say, this one, Annual Review of Environment and Resources. But this journal, even though with a lower journal impact factor, has a higher JCI. So it's performing more than 2.5 times better than the other journals. Whereas for this one, it's performing 1.5 times better. So this then helps you to determine potentially this journal could have more impactful articles collected within the span of 4 years compared to the previous one. Okay. So you want to make use of these two metrics together with the source information and so on to determine which of these would be your preference for submitting your manuscript. Now, the next thing is exporting the list. So you can definitely export the list of journals, and we have a export button here. So from this list of journals, you can just export CSV or Excel. Just take note, there is an export limit of 600. So make sure that this list is always filtered down to maximum of 600. If you need a list of journals that are, let's say, in the top 10% based on journal impact factor, then you can use the subsequent filters here on the left. There is a journal impact factor percentile. And you can set this to 90 to 100 and apply. So you would be given 18 journals, and these journals are in the top 10% based on journal impact factor. Okay. All right. You can browse the list based on publishers, based on countries as well, if interested. So feel free to explore this if you already currently have access to journal citation reports. But I think the next thing that I'll show you is where you can get the list of suppressed titles. So to get more help, we always have a resource center. There is a help section, which links you to the learning portals and also our help guide. So you can click through to the help guide. You would see our title suppressions. And this is the list of journals currently suppressed in this year's JCR. At the bottom, you would see its percentage, and you would know why they have been flagged out. All right. So I hope this quick demonstration gives you an idea of the benefits of using the platform to make decisions, helps you save time by making sure that you are directing your attention to the right and most suitable journals. Okay. One final thing that is on the platform that might be suitable for useful for researchers is a manuscript matcher. So if you already have your manuscript written, you can use this feature to match your manuscript based on the title and your abstracts, and our system will then recommend a list of potential journals based on your manuscript. Okay. All right, so I think the last few slides, and then we can probably go into questions, is around data. So many researchers are always, or institutions are always asking about getting the full journal citation reports, JCR data, to be integrated into your systems. So that is possible, but we also have different points of integrations within our existing products. So say, for example, if you are using the Web of Science, you will be able to see the relevant journals, journal impact factors in terms of the journal overlay, and it will give you the journals, quartiles, journal impact factors, and ranks. On the ProQuest platform, the journal citation metrics are connected and viewable within the ProQuest platform so that the users can reference the journal citation indicator or the journal impact factor of a title for decision making. And also on ELMA. So the journal citation indicator is also embedded into the collection management workflow in the ELMA platform, and to gather insights into the normalized journal citation performance while reviewing your holdings. Okay. If you're interested in integrating journal citation reports data into your own systems, we offer a journals API as well to enable you to do this. So if this is of interest to you or your institutions, feel free to reach out to us via the survey form that you would be receiving at the end of today's session. So in summary, to recap, after nearly 50 years, the JCR remains an essential tool for the research community. It helps you to conduct research evaluations more responsibly with multi-dimensional journal indicators and context for the numbers. Helps researchers to find the best fit journals for your manuscript using the tool that helps you to consider things like the audience, the topical relevance, open access, and citation impact. Then it will ensure that your library collections support the rigorous research and teaching using publisher-neutral data curated by objective experts. So I hope this session was useful to give you an idea of what's new in the journal citation reports. And for those of you who have never seen journal citation reports before, another avenue to consider this useful tool to be part of your research workflow. So now I think we do have about 5 or 10 minutes to answer some questions. So let me just have a quick look.
Yes, you can start where I started bolding
Okay.
the people, so it's more easier for you to read.
Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right. Okay. Now, some of you have asked about the arts and humanities category. So to do that, let me just show you the list of journals. Okay. So the AHCI categories might overlap with SSCI categories as well. But to be able to identify which are the journals that are in the pure AHCI, what you can do is if you go into the platform, you can filter this directly by the indices. So there's a citation index filter right here. And you'll be able to identify all the journals that are in AHCI. All right. So some of these would show that they are overlapping. Okay, so and some of these would have a quartile because history and philosophy of science could also be in SSCI. So it's you will be able to get a list of journals that are in AHCI, but some of these might overlap. If you need the list of pure 25, you feel free to reach out to us, and our team should be able to send that information to you. Okay. Now, some of you had questions about the downloading of the full list of 28,848 publications. That is currently only available via the API. So if you do want to get a larger list of information, list of journals, you would have to get that through our API access for journals. Okay. Da, 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 da. Okay, I think there were some questions about the promotion. I won't say the word promotion, but the movement of ESCI journals to SSCI or SCIE. Currently, the evaluation is still being paused. We don't really have a clear date of when this would be started again, but do reach out, and once it will be reinstated, those journals that are in the pipeline to be re-evaluated for indexing into SCIE or SSCI will kickstart. So it's an automatic process. Journal editors don't have to resubmit their journals again, but that once our editorial team is ready to move on to this movement, then it will move forward. But in the meantime, the indication of the rankings and the quartiles will already be there to identify which of these ESCI journals have a better citation performance in that same subject category. Okay. Your other questions would be about some of the detailed criteria for the impact assessments. So impact criteria, the 4 impact criteria that we have, that will be addressed in a separate webinar where our editorial team will be able to answer most of those questions. Okay. Then let me see. Yeah, so I think most of the questions are around downloading the content. So if you just want a list of the titles though, if your institution has a subscription to the Web of Science, then the downloading of the list itself without the journal impact factor or the journal metrics can be found on the master journal list. Okay, so do check with your institution's library to see whether you have access to Web of Science. If you do, you can actually access the master journal list to export the list of journals, but not the metrics. The metrics will still be limited to this 600. That could be a potential workaround, but yeah, currently it's just the journals API for mass download. Okay. Okay, there's another question that came in also. What do you, okay, in the manuscript matcher, how do you use the manuscript to search, I assume? That's your question. Does it impact my article when I submit to a journal? Or will it be found to be plagiarized? No. So our manuscript matcher actually is only visible to you yourself as the login person. So that means the user. So you would type in your abstract. It will not be hosted anywhere, but we will use the abstract to generate like keywords to match your manuscript to a journal. Okay. Once it's done, then it basically clears it off and it's not hosted anywhere on any website. Okay. All right, so I think that's most of the questions. We are already almost at the top of the hour. So if there are questions that we were not able to address, we will try and address them by contacting you directly. Otherwise, there is a survey form as well where you can put in your questions that were not answered so that our team can also reach out to you. All right, so I think that's all I have for today. So back to you, Amy.
Thanks so much, Julian. Thanks for the clarifications on the many questions that came in. And obviously, of course, to present for us today for JCR. Like Julian said, I know there are a lot of questions that we might have not had time to get through. So do leverage the survey after you close the WebEx window to insert, what questions you want to ask. I also have on file, a lot of the questions that you asked, which we can follow up or create an FAQ later on and share it with the follow-up email. And I just want to highlight once again that For a copy of today's presentation and also the attendance certificate. We will be sharing everything by next week. We will be sharing all the materials. So stay tuned and just watch out for that email. Sometimes it might have fallen into your junk box, but it will be sent out next week. And once again, I would like to highlight the importance of the survey. Please fill it out for us and let us know how we did. And also some of the feedback or some of the comments that you have for today's session. And now I'd like to wrap it up and thank all of you for joining us today. And thank you once again, Julin, for presenting for us. And we hope to see you again soon at our next event or webinar. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.